Right, hello guys, and welcome to today's video. And today I'm going to be sharing with you the best Black Ops 6 settings plus my GameSir G7 Pro setup, because yes, I am using the GameSir G7 Pro now, and these settings are tailor-made for Call of Duty and specifically Black Ops 6 also, but these settings can also be used in many other FPS games, and I'll talk about that more today. But if you want to skip to those all-important Black Ops 6 settings, I will have some timestamps down below if you are either not interested in the G7 Pro, have a different controller that you want to use settings for. No problem, those settings will still work for them, for those controllers, whether it's on PlayStation, Xbox, doesn't matter. If it's not the G7 Pro, it's perfectly fine. But those settings I have for Black Ops 6 are tailor-made towards this G7 Pro setup that I will be sharing with you first. And again, there is a timestamp down below to those all-important Black Ops 6 settings and any other specific settings that you are looking for Black Ops 6. But let's start with the GameSir G7 Pro. I do have a full in-depth guide with these exact settings that I have already made a video on. So if you have seen that as well, feel free to skip to those Black Ops 6 settings. But this guide here is kind of going to showcase to you just my settings. I'm not going to talk about full depth of the controller. It's not really a review or anything, but if you want to see a review, kind of a full in-depth talk about this controller, then I do have a video about that literally in my last video, so go check that out. But first of all, for anyone who does have the G7 Pro or is planning on getting the G7 Pro and setting it up for Black Ops 6, first things first, you want to download the GameSir Nexus app. This is not instantly on your console. You need this in order to access this screen here, which allows you to customize the controller on Xbox itself. So let's get into it. Let's showcase the buttons. As you can see, everything's pretty normal. A is A, B is B, Y is Y, RB is RB. You get the point. Everything has stayed the same. Now, the difference between the GameSir G7 Pro compared to things like the Elite Series 2, this does have back paddles and stuff, but they are built into the controller. You can't take these off from that. As you can see, you have L5 and R5 there, which are buttons that are in between the bumpers and the triggers. I don't actually have these set to anything at the moment. I don't plan on using them at the moment, but I do recommend trying to increase as many back paddle or back buttons and stuff that you use when playing Call of Duty, just because it's very useful to not have to take your thumb off the thumbstick. For me personally, right now, I'm just going around with one, which is the R4 down there. As you can see, I have it mapped to A for jumping, which you will see with my Call of Duty Black Ops 6 settings, but I don't really have a need at the moment to have L4, R5, and L5 set to any sort of binds at the moment, but all I'd say with this is for anyone looking to add more buttons to their, usage with these paddles, definitely try and do so. But if it gets to a point where you're accidentally pressing those buttons and stuff, then take them off, don't use them. And obviously with the L4 and R4, you can actually set them to be locked to never be able to press them at all, which I have actually done with L4. So L4 I cannot use, it is locked. I cannot press this down whatsoever with the switch on the back. And on the right side, of course, we do have the switch unlocked, so I can press R4 in order to hit those A jump shots and stuff like that in Black Ops 6. But nothing too crazy here. Again, like I said, you can either use for all four of the paddles or buttons, etc. 3 of them, 2 of them, 1 of them. You don't even have to use any of them if you really don't want to. Best make sure you are comfortable with the controller. That's what this controller is designed for. It's to make you as comfortable and as precise with a controller in your hand for FPS games and other games that you are potentially looking to play. So make sure you keep that in mind. But moving on. Sticks, this is going to be very important, okay? So listen and pay attention. Left stick, you got this left as normal. Make sure your dead zones are set to 0 and 100 here. So 0 on the initial, 100 on the max. Same with the anti-dead zone, 0 and 100 on both. Curve adjustment, I've left it as normal. This is just movement. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but I have got it set to raw. This does make a difference. This doesn't just change like how this looks here when you're like moving the stick around that. This does actually change how the input of the controller works with these sticks. So you've got to change this. And I believe raw is the absolute best. It takes the most precise and precision of your sticks. Like this is pretty as precise as good as it's going to get. You also have more further like surface area to move and stuff, etc. It is just a more precise setting. It is very, very useful and definitely want to be taken advantage of, which is why you're going to see when we go over to the right stick here, we've done the same thing. However, I will state that I've got the dead zone set to 2 and 100 as the max. Now, the reason for that being on 0, it's very, very sensitive. I mean, the slightest touch will make it move, and you don't want that. It's too touchy. Like, I promise you, you won't like the feeling of it. Definitely have your dead zone set a little bit higher, maybe at 2, maybe even potentially 1, but I went with 2 to be safe, and I found it to work the best that way. Anti-dead zone, though, 0 and 100 again. Curve adjustment. You're going to see, though, we have chosen one of the settings, and we've chosen the third one here, and I'd go with that. And I've picked 80. As you can see, the curve up the top, so you can see a graph here of output to input or input to output, whichever way. And as you can see, it's a kind of a dynamic curve line. I've went with that. I've tried to make it as close to like dynamic in Call of Duty. If you've ever seen like the guideline for how dynamic works in Call of Duty, that's pretty much it. But I've got it set to that on the raw controller itself. Now you're probably thinking that means I'm using linear in Black Ops 6. No, I'm not. I'm also using dynamic, but I'll explain that more when I get to the Black Ops 6 settings. And then finally, the last part, again, stick trajectory. You want it to be as precise as possible. Where I am moving the thumbstick, it is absolutely precise. I can move it very slowly, very precise. As you can see, it is following so precisely. You have no idea until you like use the controller in game how useful this is when it comes to aiming, how precise you can be. Those quick flicks, those very minor movements that you need to make are so fantastic with this controller. And obviously this does take advantage of the TMR sticks that they use. They are incredible. And the stick trajectory you want at raw to be able to make this controller as precise as possible and just make it fantastic for aiming. I promise you, you know, and thank me later, right? Because I promise you these are the best settings for this controller. Next up, triggers, you've got your RT and LT, both on 0 and 100, so you can get a full press. But on the left trigger, I do have the trigger stop not on, so I don't have the trigger stop on whatsoever, so I can slightly press it or fully press it. So that's why I've left the curve adjustment like that and the hair trigger mode on off, because on the right side is where we actually take effect of the hair trigger mode. So as soon as I press, I've got the trigger stop on, by the way. I have the trigger stop on the right trigger. Because I have it on, as soon as I press it, it's a 100% click. It's going to, as soon as I touch it, that's it. I've done a full press. And obviously left trigger is your aiming trigger, so you don't really need this to be instantaneous, I'd say. It's not really that important. I also personally don't like the feel of the left trigger being like with the trigger on. I just don't like that. It feels awful on my hands. So the right trigger I do, though. As you can see, 0, 100 on both. Curve adjustment, again, I don't really know if that does anything, but I've left it as it is anyway. And fixed mode, you want that on 0 and 100 because, again, as soon as you press the trigger with the hair trigger mode, your weapon's going to be firing as quick as possible. And plus, if it's a semi-auto, you can go bang, bang, bang like that as fast as you possibly can. Again, obviously it'll be limited due to the, you know, fire rates of weapons, etc. But definitely want to be doing that with your right trigger. And then finally, moving on, the vibrations, turn them all off. You don't need this controller vibrating in your hand. It does have a really nice immersive feeling. I did actually have them on just to see what these are actually like. They are very nice for an immersive feeling, but they will affect your aim. It will also reduce the lifespan of your controller. Definitely do not do it. I'd turn off your vibration. Go look it up. You can see that vibration does actually ruin your controller in the long term. So I'd say to have this off completely. But that is it. That is all you need to do to make this GameSir G7 Pro, this brand new controller, which, by the way, I have the Ember Edition. I can't remember what it's specifically called. Shadow Ember, I believe it's called. It's incredible. This controller is absolutely amazing. Again, I do have a full guide discussing this controller in depth. That is just a brief showcase of my settings that I do specifically use for Black Ops 6, but I have used in Battlefield, etc. And it works incredible in any FPS game. But this is what I am using along with my Black Ops 6 settings, which, speaking of Black Ops 6 settings, let's cut to that now. Let's talk about those all-important Black Ops 6 Season 5 settings. Right, and welcome to the second segment of today's video, which are those all-important Black Ops 6 settings, more specifically Black Ops 6 Season 5 settings, as we are into a new season. I have changed a lot of my settings around, so you guys, if you've seen my settings before, are going to realize a lot of things have changed. And again, it will be because of the GameSir G7 Pro controller I'm using. It has caused me to change a lot of settings, but also, whilst these are tailor-made for that controller, and I do think to take full advantage of these settings, a GameSir G7 Pro controller is the best controller to take advantage of these settings. And I'm not saying that to sell you a controller. I'm not sponsored or anything. I don't make any extra money from GameSir itself. I think the controller is fantastic, but these settings will work with your PlayStation 4 controller, PlayStation 5, Xbox Elite Series 2, you name it. These settings will work, and you can adjust them around if you want to. So let's get into it. Let's talk about these all-important Black Ops 6 settings. So as you can see, we're using button out tactical. We've got B to melee, because again, we don't really need to melee in this game. It's not very useful, so I set it to B because I'm not really going to be pressing it or using it in many or most occasions, but I do want to be able to, on my right stick, and not have to move my thumb off the right stick, to be able to change stance, slide, and dive, because of course Black Ops 6 takes advantage of being able to slide cancel and stuff like that. You want to be able to do that without taking your thumb off the thumbstick. Sure, you could maybe move it to a paddle on that on the GameSir G7 Pro, but I like to have it on the thumbstick just because it feels comfortable to me, and it is great for when you're also trying to aim at the same time whilst performing a slide cancel. So definitely use tactical. That doesn't matter because it's on default. Horizontal and vertical stick scissors heavy. Obviously, we've left the stages of doing 0 to 20. It's now 0 to 4, which a bit weird, but it is what it is. It's what Call of Duty wants to do. I go anywhere between 1.40 and 1.60. Obviously, you can adjust it by 0.05. I've set with 1.50 and 1.50. Again, that has changed because of the GameSir G7 Pro. I was using 1.40 and 1.40. But because of how precise these sticks are, I have been able to actually bump my sensitivity up just a little bit. So I'm on 1.50 for both. All of this doesn't matter. Have this all off. You don't need that. Controller vibration, have it off. You do not need the controller vibrating in your hand. And then finally, dead zone inputs. These are quite important. Make sure you're getting these right. I have it set to, even with the dead zones that I've got set for the GameSir G7 Pro, I've got the left stick min on 2, left stick max 99, right stick min on 5, and right stick max on 99. Again, the TMR sticks and the sticks that are built with the GameSir G7 Pro aren't supposed to really build up stick drift over time and can be reduced or, fixed over time. So I could probably set these lower, but just to be safe, I have set them to 2 and 5. Maybe in the future I might lower these just because of the sticks that I'm using with this controller. But if you're on any other controller that will probably be prone to stick drift over time, like an Elite Series 2 or a Scuff controller, you want to probably use these settings: left stick min on 2 and your right stick min on 5, so that if you do develop stick drift, you don't have to readjust your aim because you're having to bump this up a little bit each time. So yeah, 2 for left stick min and then right stick min, have it on 5. Next up, moving on to aiming. Again, this is all 1. Don't really need to change that. Can if you want to, though. That doesn't really matter. But this is the important part. Now, even though I have set this to instant for a start, we'll put that on as well. But the really important thing here, which people are probably going to be confused with my GameSir G7 Pro settings, why am I not using linear? Why am I not taking full advantage of the controller as it is? I don't know why. I can't explain the science of it, but having dynamic along with the dynamic kind of curve I've built into the controller, along with this curve scale of 0.65, which again, I would recommend playing around with this because this is going to be different for everyone. I'd say anywhere between 0.60 and 0.80 is going to be the best with the dynamic curve. But this just works. I can't tell you how good my aim has been using this alongside the GameSir G7 Pro, like kind of like dynamic setting that I've built into it. It's absolutely incredible. So again, dynamic with 0.65, definitely do that. Give it a shot. If not, if it doesn't work for you, just move it up in like 0.05 increments or 0.02 and see where it works for you and settles best for you. But definitely start with 0.65 and then go from there. Target aim assist. Obviously, you want your aim assist on. What are you doing if you don't have it on? Movement, nothing crazy here other than have it off. You don't need sprint assist on. Sprint assist delay to 0, so you're not having any delay whilst trying to sprint. And then have these off. I've seen people have these on. You're causing yourself to be sprinting in a gunfight when going sideways or backwards. Like, you do not need these on. Have these off. Like, it's crazy. I don't understand why people still have those on. Mantle assist, have this all completely off because you don't want to be accidentally mantling in the middle of a gunfight. Crouch assist got off. Corner slice, I know what it does. It doesn't really affect my gameplay in a good way. It doesn't affect it in a bad way. So I've kind of just left it as it is. Slide dive behavior, I've got on slide only now. I used to use hybrid, but I've kind of kept it at slide only for now. I don't know. It just seems a little bit better. I don't know if it's more responsive than hybrid. It did feel that way, but that could just be placebo. But I went with slide only. Either way, slide only or hybrid is what you should be using anyway. Sprint restore, I've got off. Automatic airborne mantle, I've got off. Slide maintain sprint off. And the rest of this doesn't really matter at all. Combat, again, nothing crazy here. Hold to ADS, of course. Don't change this to toggle. Weapon mount activation. So I don't weapon mount in this game. It's not very useful. It just does not help in this game. All the maps close quarters. You're not going to need to use this. So ADS plus melee, so that it's still there to be used, but you're not going to accidentally do it when you don't want to do it. So ADS plus melee, just in case I do want to do it. This is just hold melee, prioritize finisher move, apply all. Again, none of this really matters too much. Again, same with here. Nothing really crazy that you need to worry about. If it's not the same, it doesn't matter. It won't affect the way you play. Graphics, we'll move this on, okay? 120 hertz refresh rate. You have to have a monitor and a console that is capable of doing this. I am on an Xbox Series X. Also, a PC will be able to play at 120. Most people's PCs will nowadays play at 120 FPS, 120 hertz, you name it. But yeah, so on Xbox or Xbox Series X, you can play at 120 hertz. I also have a monitor that's capable, so I have this setting on. If you don't or don't have the option to use this setting, you either want to upgrade your monitor or upgrade your console to be able to do so. I'm going to tell you now, 120 hertz, 120 FPS is a big advantage over 60 FPS or 60 hertz nowadays. It's a big difference. You definitely want to be making sure you have a monitor and console that allows you to play at 120 hertz. I can't stress that enough. Gamma and brightness, this is going to depend monitor by monitor. I went by 50, so as you can see, it says not visible. You can then barely visibly see the Call of Duty screen logo, and then easily visible the Call of Duty logo. This is going to be different depending on your monitor settings, so I can't go through this for everyone, but just make sure it looks like that. Not visible, barely visible, and easily visible. Pretty simple guide to follow, and that'll make sure the best. Eco Mode preset. Actually, I had this on low consumption before. I don't know why that wasn't a setting before. That's a new setting. I did not realize that. Anyway, but it was stuck on efficiency. I've got it on low consumption is what I have it on. It's not going to affect your gameplay. I promise you, you're not going to have less FPS or less input, have more input delay. It does not do that. I promise you the world. So don't worry about it. It just stops your Xbox and PlayStation from sounding like it's taken off. Next up though, world motion blur, weapon motion blur, and depth of field all off, because I can see it makes the game blurry. It makes it really hard to see things. It even makes like your outside view of when you're aiming down sight even a little bit more blurry. So do not have these on. They just affect how you can see people in game. Fidelity cast I have on, but I have it set to 63. Now I seen a video from someone and he showcased like proof of this, like actual proof. 63 specifically is the best input delay in the game, like the lowest possible input delay when using Fidelity Cast on. I believe if you have it off, like you will get less input delay, but your game is going to look terrible. 63 the specific, so even if you get it less, even if you put this less, it's not going to give you less input delay. It gives you more input delay. For some reason, 63 is the absolute magic number. I can't remember the YouTuber. Some of you might know who it is. Feel free to put him in the comments. I don't mind. I don't mind promoting him. He does some wonderful work of actually going in depth and actually testing the settings and how they affect your input delay and stuff. And the magic number is 63. I am not joking, but thanks to him, we know this now. So go with 63. On-demand texture streaming, have it on minimal. You do not want this on because it's going to cause you to lag, have lag spikes, cause your connection to fluctuate. You don't want this on. It's not useful whatsoever. It does not make the game look better. Got these both on off. Field of view, you want to make sure you're getting this right, because this does massively affect how your aim will behave, as well as like being able to run around the map and just the feeling of the game when you're aiming, moving, etc. This is a very, very important part you want to get right. Anywhere between 95 and 105 is what you want to go with. I've settled on 103, seems to be the magic number for me, but you can play around with this a bit. I'd go anywhere between 95 and 105. ADS field of view affected, and then weapon field of view, have it on wide, okay? The reason you want it on wide is because this gives you the least amount of visual recoil. It won't reduce recoil, okay? I want to state that. It's not going to make your Krig shoot even straighter. It's just going to give you less visual recoil, which makes it easier to aim the weapon. So definitely have it set to wide. Third person, this doesn't really matter. This does, though. Make sure this is on least. I wish there was an option to make this 0, but unfortunately it's not. So I've got it set to 50%, the lowest you can. And then finally, moving on to audio. Again, I don't really sound whore in this game, but these are my settings anyway that I have been using. I don't really play to sound whore. I don't really think it's important in this game either, if I'm completely honest. But it's there anyway. That's the what I'm using. Again, none of this really matters too much. Reduce tinnitus sound if you don't really want to, have a bad hearing by the time you're age 30 or something. Voice chat, again, none of this really matters, unless you want to make sure that you're able to troll and stuff. And then finally, interface, save and latency and packet loss, turn these on so you can see whether you're lagging, if you're on a bad server, maybe things aren't feeling right, and then you can see in the top left that, hey, you're on like 100 millisecond ping, you should probably leave the lobby, or you're getting lag spikes, etc. You want to have these on so you can see that. Readability, again, nothing crazy here, but this is quite important because this does affect how the game looks to you. So you've got your HUD color palette, which you can change to whatever colors you want. That's all personal preference. I'm not going to say anything specific there, but this is important. Filter 2, you've got to change it to filter 2. It makes the game much more better. Set the color filter target to both, and then have the world color intensity and interface color intensity both set to 100. From my gameplays, you guys should be able to see how visually clear the game looks, how great it looks, and it makes it so much easier to be able to aim, to shoot, to track enemies, to see where enemies are. We were like trying to hide in corners and stuff. It makes the gameplay look so much better, so you definitely be doing that. Gameplay HUD, again, I've got the safe area set to minimum, by the way. That is very important, because what that'll do, so the safe area here, if you bring it more to the center, the actual minimap comes closer to the center screen, so you're not having to look away up to the top left to look at that minimap. You can stay looking at the center screen whilst being able to look at your minimap to see the red dots, where your teammates are spawning, etc. Very, very important that you minimize this. Don't move this outwards, move this more closer to the center. Minimap I've got set to, why is it actually set to round? It's supposed to be on square. That's crazy. Anyway, that was always on square. I don't know why that's changed to round. But yeah, set to square. As you can see, square is bigger. It gives you more ability to read the map, and you can see more. I can't believe that was on circle. That's crazy. But crosshair as well. You might want to customize this, make it look more visually appealing. For me, for some reason, I like it on green, even though green does obviously go into textures like grass and trees, etc. I seem to be able to use, like, spot people and use the crosshair better when it's on green. Some people I know change it to like light blue and stuff. Just make sure it's a crosshair that you are, you know, it's visually good for you and you can see and actually like help you aim a little bit. Again, you want these on. You want to see that you get hit markers and damage-based hit markers, etc. And then the rest of this doesn't really matter whatsoever. But that is it. That is all. That is the Black Ops 6 best settings here in Season 5, paired with my brand new GameSir G7 Pro, which most of you, I do think, will see this video, are going to be looking forward to pairing with your GameSir G7 Pro. Definitely pair those settings with your GameSir G7 Pro here in Black Ops 6, because trust me, these are the absolute best settings. These are the best settings for the GameSir G7 Pro, and these are the absolute best Black Ops 6 settings here in Season 5. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, notifications on. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye.